style. We're so glad that you've joined us today. We have just a great program for you, but I want to remind you that you're listening to KXEX 1550 AM, Saturdays at 4 p.m., Sundays at 6. You can catch Powell to the People. We talk politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities, and anything you want to talk about. You can catch us on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, we got it. Good News with Larry Powell is also heard 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You want a good news story and be pumped up? Catch KXEX every weekday, Monday through Friday, for Good News with Larry Powell. We're so glad today to have with us a really good friend of mine that I've known. Rick, we've known each other for, I don't know, decades now, but I've got Rick Alonzo Ministries, and his daughter, Faith Escobedo, is with us, and she's part of the ministry as well. And she's better looking than both of us, so that's a nice feature,
Yes,
So,
yes, it is.
but Rick, you have an amazing history, and we're going to get into the history, going to get into the ministry and things like that. But I want to talk a little bit about where did you grow up? What was life like for you when you were a little kid? And then we're going to get into a bunch of really interesting things. This is one of my favorite artists in the world, and we're going to learn a little more about speed painting and some things. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever seen Break the Barriers, you've seen one of Rick's paintings, and you've seen him do it. Amazing stuff. We're going to get into that. But Rick, tell me about your childhood. What was it like when you were growing up as Rick Alonzo?
Wow, thank you so much, Larry. Well, I was originally from the Philippines. I was I grew up there. Came to America in 1979. But when I was living in the Philippines, man, it's just totally different from America. So we lived in almost like a village slash jungly type of place. It is located in the Mabalacat, Pampanga area in the Philippines.
Where is that in
The
connection to
island would be
Manila?
Luzon,
Okay, Luzon,
about
gotcha.
2 hours north of Manila.
Okay.
So growing up in the Philippines, very, very difficult, of course. Um, I remember so many memories there. So let me just tell you a little bit about
So how old were you when you got here to America?
I was 12 years old.
12. So
I
you
was,
did have a lot of memories
I did,
that
I
you
did.
could keep in
So
there.
some of my memories at school, how different it was. So when I was in school, we learned writing, reading, arithmetic, and things like that. But for us, the teachers really emphasize on farming.
Mhm.
Learn how to grow vegetables. Learn how to
Well,
hunt.
you're in the right place now too, because we do the same thing here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we did. That was more important than the education, because a lot of times our mentality in the Philippines is, what if mom and dad pass away? Who's gonna take care
Right.
of you? So you have to learn how to hunt, how to grow vegetables.
To
You
survive.
basically have to
Yep.
learn how to survive. So that was the thing. Learning how to plant vegetables, learn how to hunt, fish, whatever we can do to survive. Um, our food is so different. When I came to America, um, Kentucky Fried Chicken was my favorite. But over there in the Philippines, we hunted for just about any insects you could possibly imagine: grasshoppers,
Yeah.
crickets, you name it.
Yeah, sure.
So it was the culture.
So you didn't go to Save Mart.
I wish we had a Save
Yeah,
Mart.
right.
Uh,
Now I'm sure they do.
oh,
Yeah, a lot
do.
different,
They
but
do now. It's a lot different
yeah.
now. So, in fact, I got a chance to go back and see that about 5 years ago, and it was incredible.
Cool. Yeah.
So, but I hope that answers your question a
Yeah.
little
Now
bit.
tell me how many kids in the family?
Okay,
Mom and dad, and how
mom
many
and
kids?
dad, how many kids are originally 13, but one passed. So now there's 12 of us, and everyone's still alive.
Wow, that's good.
My sister's in Michigan, and the rest of us are in Fresno.
Okay.
So
And who's oldest? in
the
the family?
oldest, my sister Elena, was the oldest.
Okay. And
And
and so where are you in the line?
number 4
Number 4.
from the youngest. Yeah, yeah. So and yeah. So as a child, what I remember is, if if I don't take care or obey my parents, if one of my brothers say, get in trouble, we all get spanked. I mean, we all late. I think you
Sure.
kind of understand how that goes. But if so, that teaches us how to work as a team.
Oh, of course, of
So
course. Well, in early America, the larger families were necessary because of farming,
yes,
and those kind of things. So it's really very, very understandable. My mom and dad grew up here. Mom grew up in Missouri. And a lot of kids in the family, and that kind of thing. So yeah, and then she made the trip across,
oh
with
man,
the rocking chair on top of the car, the whole bit,
wow,
So
wow.
yeah, so we get it. We get it.
All right,
Well, so you've got 12 family members still alive.
they're still alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. And,
7 boys, 5 girls.
Mhm.
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
yeah. And I've worked with an Alonzo for a long time, you and your brother,
Yeah.
in school
Yes.
and things. So we've had an opportunity to share for quite a few years. So, Faith, let me ask you, your family, obviously your dad is Rick.
Yes.
So tell me how many in your family with that.
So I'm one of four. I'm the oldest, and I'm the only girl. I've got 3 younger brothers.
So you outnumber the guys. Let me
Yes,
tell you.
I know.
I had 2 brothers and a sister, and our
Oh,
sister
fun.
outnumbered us. Let me
Oh,
tell
fun.
you. So I get it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting childhood growing up when you've got 3 younger brothers. So I had to kind of like rein them in. They're all taller than me and can beat me up now. So
They're really tall.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Kingsburg High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful community.
Oh yeah.
And you guys live in Kingsburg now.
Yes.
And Rick Alonzo Ministries is out of
It's
Kingsburg.
basically
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So what was it like for you in high school?
Very interesting. Cause well, Dad, he's been to pretty much every single school in the valley,
Yes.
and so he's very well known. And he'd come to our school wherever we were at to do school assemblies. So he'd do his speed painting and tell like a motivational message or an encouraging message for the kids. And so people were always like, "Oh my gosh, that's your dad!" And they'd freak out. They're like, "Dude, your dad's so cool." And I was like, "You guys don't see him at home, you know?"
I love
Biggest
it.
dork at all.
Yeah, exactly. But it was really cool growing up. Like we got to experience a lot of really cool things because we were able to travel a lot because Dad was always traveling. So
Sure.
as we got older, we also had a part in the ministry. So we would travel with him. We'd learn how to set up paint and his whole stage setup, like how to run in his like booths and do all that kind of stuff. And then he taught me to speed paint at a very young age. I started speed painting, I think, really seriously when I was 10.
Wow.
So I had
Fantastic.
I have a memory of like when I was like in 4th grade,
Yeah.
and I didn't know he was going to do this, but he called me on stage while he was speed painting and doing his message. And he's like, "Faith, you want to come up here and paint?" And I was like,
Oh boy.
and so I painted. I think I painted Martin Luther King
Oh, I
on
love it.
stage and did that whole thing. But it was just something that I remember very fondly because it's like I was able to do that with my dad.
Yeah. Neat.
But yeah, and so now I'm doing it really seriously, even more so, and I'm working with the ministry full time. And I've been speed painting and speaking as well with him, and
Yep.
that's been just a huge blessing.
Yeah,
to
that's
do
great.
that.
And you're married.
Yes.
And do you have kids yet, or?
No, not
Okay.
yet. My husband Isaiah,
Yeah.
he and I've been married. We'll be 5 years this year. So
Yeah.
in August we'll be married 5 years.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you so
great.
much.
That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, Rick, your family, you, your brothers and sisters, and I've met a number of them over the years.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. But your ministry is an absolutely amazing thing, and anybody who has seen you do your speed painting is phenomenal. I mean, it's you so graciously did my wife Dot and I a beautiful, beautiful piece for us when we were recognized by Break the Barriers as one of their key supporters and things. But it's been really cool to see how you have grown in your ministry and in your art and in your martial arts and in your speaking, and just everything about what you do has just expanded like crazy.
Mhm.
It's been fantastic. Tell us, we're going to get started here. We only got about a minute or so left in our first segment, but tell us a little bit about how did you get into martial arts? Because I think it's so cool how that has been integrated into your art with speed painting and things.
Well, when I was in the Philippines, I used to watch a bunch of martial artists work out at the river, and so I would just watch and like I wish I can do that. And so I just had this inspiration to actually mimic them.
Okay.
And so when I came to America, you know I could actually learn that because here in America, I mean, you can learn whatever you want to
Oh,
learn.
absolutely.
So I started practicing and learning and doing all that, and pretty soon I thought I wanted to be I actually competed in martial arts, and I actually did some martial art teaching. I taught women self defense and also
Yeah.
self defense for kids and families, but I never really thought that I would be using it in ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fantastic combination of martial arts and art. They go together like, hand in glove. It's so
Yes.
cool. Well, folks, I can't believe how fast these segments go, but we're at the end of our first segment. We're going to be back in just a minute. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. Stick with us.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
If you're in a low, if you're getting sick, if you're feeling well, if you're getting up, if you just fell, God's love and faithfulness will always be the same. Some things never change.
This is Powell to the People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. That's Mark Lowry's music. He's often performed with Bill Gaither and the Gaither Vocal Band and things, and I just love his music. I love his humor, a lot of good things about it, but I love that song because God's love never changes, and how cool that is. Well, you're back with Rick Alonzo and with Faith Escobedo from the Rick Alonzo Ministries, and Rick, tell me a little bit about how you got started in ministry. How did you, first come to know the Lord?
Wow. Okay. Well, I've always, I guess, in a way, I thought I knew the Lord. When I was 4 years old, I wanted to become a Catholic priest. In fact,
Okay.
I wanted to do so much things for the Lord. But when I came to America, it wasn't till I came to America where the Lord truly started to call on me. So let me just make this long story short. I was working for Break the Barriers
Oh,
one
yeah,
night,
I remember.
and I was teaching an art class. And at that moment, when we were ready to do art, I I felt a bit depressed that night. I felt like there was more to life than just this.
Hmm.
And so I I heard questions like, "Who am I? What is my purpose in life?
Sure.
And where am I going after I die?" So those three questions, I struggled as a child, but I never thought I'd hear them again because I'm in America, you know. So that night, I dismissed my class early, and I told them you can go home, and grabbed my key, and drove home. While on my way home from work, I was weeping before God. And I said, God, I don't know why you brought me to America. I'm so confused. I don't even know if you even have a plan for my life.
Hmm.
And I don't even know if you're real because I never really heard you.
Sure.
But those voices that I heard that at that time, they were from God. I just didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I love it.
so when I got to McKinley and Railroad, that overpass 99 right there,
Yeah.
I saw these kids spray painting on a wall. And I said, God, look at those kids. Why are they doing that? They have no business in spray painting on that wall. That's not their wall. So I parked my car and I said, I want to reach them, but I just don't know how. And I wanted to get out of the car, but I thought, man, they're going to make fun of me. So I didn't stop. I kept going home,
Hmm.
still praying, still no answer. So I got home that night. I quickly said hi to my mom, went in my bedroom, locked myself in my bedroom. I took the Bible that a pastor had given me at a youth group, and I slammed it on the floor. I said, God, it says here that you love me, and it says here you have a purpose for my life. Who are you? Where are you? And why can't I hear you?
Yeah.
And it was at that moment when the Lord spoke. And it wasn't like an audible voice. I heard it was God because He spoke to me in my mind.
Sure.
And He reminded me that it's all I did when I was a kid. How I used to draw Jesus Christ and the Lone Ranger And I'm like, Jesus Christ is
Wow,
the Lone
that's a
Ranger.
combo.
What is that about?
Yeah.
And he told me that night, Rick, I'm reminding you these things because those two are symbolic.
Mm.
The Lone Ranger represent what you wanted to do in your life. When I took you to America,
Wow.
you wanted to become rich. You wanted to become popular. You become famous. You.
Yeah.
The Jesus Christ you were, sketching was that represent me. That represent
Wow.
what I want you to do for me. But then you'd forgotten me. You've forgotten first love. Basically, he was saying. And I said that night, I said, God, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. What is it that you want me to do now? He said, I need you to forget everything that you've learned, and I want you to focus on me.
Mm.
And he said, I need you to paint for me. You're not going to understand what I'm going to do in front of people, but I just need you to obey.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, Lord, I will. And I repented that night. The next morning, God says, quit your job.
Wow.
Very clearly, quit your job.
Yeah.
And I came up to Debbie and Steve, and I told them about what what my experience was last night.
That the Lord was
Yeah,
talking to
yeah.
you.
And
Yeah.
so surprisingly, they said, "No, we knew, we knew." They said, "We knew." So, you knew because yeah, we see it in your life.
Wow.
There's something about you, and I'm like, wow, I wish I knew. But anyway, that was the very first time, and the Lord, I said, God, I don't really know what to do next. And he said, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
So they heard about my experience, and for some reason I was doing some kind of, when you're called, you just go crazy. You just do what God has called you to do.
Yeah.
So through the news and everything, people have seen it, and I was getting invited different organizations, different events, and things like that. And God just launched that ministry.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get into painting to start with?
Yeah.
And folks, I got to tell you, Rick Alonso's painting, his speed painting, is absolutely fascinating. When you're sitting there, you're just enraptured with what you're seeing. It's phenomenal. I'm assuming, Faith, you've got the same skill because of Dad, and
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing. But how did you get into the whole idea of doing that?
Wow.
And folks, you got to understand, it is something that is so visual. When you're watching it, you don't have a clue what's going on. And when that painting is flipped, you're going, wow, how does that happen? Because, I can't draw a chicken, let alone do what you do. So how did you get into it?
I've always had a love for art. When I was 4 years old, after bonfire in the morning, the charcoal would become cold, and then I take the charcoal and I start sketching something on the wall. But I never had paint. Paint in the Philippines was so expensive.
Sure.
Even papers and pencils were so expensive. That's why we use charcoal.
Wow.
So, but when I came to America, I couldn't believe the kind of materials and art that is being produced here. So I said, man, I'm gonna try to see if I can learn as much as
Sure.
I can. So I started, doing paintings in schools, doing some art and entering them, winning first place, second place here and there. And then afterwards, I got really, I went to college and studied art and architecture. But for some reason, I was still bored at it, Larry. I got
Mm.
bored at it because I've done everything. I've done a biomedical rendering. I've done cartooning. I've done, fashion design. I've done car design. I've done
Sure.
it. I've done just about in architecture. But then there's got to be more than this. Then I start pondering, how can I take art, make something a little different? And so this was now God speaking, and I didn't
Yeah.
know about it. So I imagined myself using a stick with a paintbrush at the end, twirling it, doing martial arts, flipping, all that kind of good stuff, just to basically reach the audience.
Sure.
My passion, now that I thought about it, my passion is not so much of art, but it's using art to reach people
Right.
because I want people, the audience, to experience art from start to finish.
Right.
When you go to a gallery, you see an art hanging. I'm like, man, I wish the artist is here so I can ask him questions of how he did this, why did he use this type of color and all that
What
stuff.
was he thinking?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Sure.
So speed painting came about from that type of thinking, and I just wanted to do something a little different. And little did I know that that's what God planned for my life.
Yeah. And now you're one of the foremost speed painters, in California, maybe beyond. I mean, you are so well known. So you got well known, even though that wasn't your goal.
No, it wasn't my goal at all.
But God used it in a powerful way to enhance the kingdom of God and to do some really amazing things. Well, Faith, let me go to you real quick. When did you decide, hey, maybe I can do this and I'd be interested?
Well, that's a great question. Like I said earlier, I grew up kind of doing it. I started it seriously around 10, and then
So about the same age as your dad,
Yeah.
with the idea.
right,
Yeah.
and so I was doing it for a little bit, and then I had like kind of like I don't know if a crisis would be the right word, but I was just questioning God, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, I don't want anything to do with you,
Sure.
just from stuff in my past that had happened, and I was having a hard time believing that God was real or that he even loved me or cared about me. And so uh, when I got saved and when I truly dedicated my life to the Lord, that's when kind of everything changed. I was 18 when that happened. And I was like, okay, God, like, what do you want me to do? I know you're calling me into ministry.
Yeah.
I just have no idea what that looks like. And so I was just going through school. I got my degree in psychology from Fresno State. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to be, a biblical counselor or a therapist. But then I just felt God was calling me towards, more ministry type stuff. And I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
what does that look like? And I felt I was working for our family company. At the time, I was in business and completely different from ministry. And I just felt like the pull, like, Faith, I need you to quit your job, kind of similar to
Oh
Dad.
boy. Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean quit my job? Like I this is how I make money. Like this is how I pay my bills.
Yep.
And but God was like, no, I'm calling you into ministry. This is what I want you to do this.
I love it.
And so I was like, okay, God, I trust you. I'm going to step out and do it. So I quit my job, and I was, just praying and taking as a time of just like resting for like a month. And I kept applying to different jobs, and I wasn't getting anything back, which was really surprising to me because I was like, I have a lot of experience,
Yeah.
and I have my degree, so I thought that wouldn't be a big problem. But like, I wasn't able to really get anything, and so I was like, what the heck? Like, okay, this is okay, God. Obviously, you don't
The
want me
doors
here.
that close
Yes.
lead to the open one.
Exactly. And so then I was talking to my dad about it, and he's like, honey, why don't you try working with me in ministry? And I was like, when I was like younger, I told myself, I was like, I'm never working in this ministry again. And, God has a really funny sense of humor.
He does.
And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And that was
Yeah.
October of 2021. And I've been doing it since then.
Wow.
And I've felt like, yes, like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And this is where God wants me. And he's been using Dad and I for that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. So we've got Speed Painter 1, Speed Painter 2.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, folks, if you ever hear about Rick Alonso doing one of his exhibits someplace, you have to go see it because it's absolutely marvelous. And Faith, I'm anxious to see how you end up doing all of this as well. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're going to be right back. Stick with us. We'll see you in a few.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
No matter what comes, no matter what goes, if you're on a high, if you're in a low, if you're getting sick, if you're feeling well, if you're getting up, if you just fell, God's love and faithfulness will always be the same. Some things never change.
This is Powell to the People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're so glad you're with us today, and I've got two special guests with me, Rick Alonso and his daughter, Faith Escobedo, and from Rick Alonso Ministries. And Rick, you and I have known each other. You got to Fresno in what would you say, 1979?
I got to Fresno in 1979.
And then when did you start working with Break the Barriers? Because that's when I first met you.
1986.
So 86.
Yeah.
So 14 and 23, 37. We've known each other almost 40
wow.
years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yes.
And what's been a pleasure for me is to have watched you seen you grow in your ministry, grow in your talent. You always had a presence, a character about you. You know, when you step on stage, people can't help but watch because you have God blesses us with that ability to connect with the audience. You do that when you're up there and you got a blank canvas, and people have no clue if they've not seen you before. They have no clue what you're going to do. You start putting stuff up there, and my mind's going crazy. I don't see that. What in the world is that? You know, and then I realized after the first time, obviously, you're painting it upside down. First of all, I can't get my mind around that. You know, how can I make it look like something when I can't even see it? You know, but it's absolutely phenomenal what you do, and the ability to capture the imagination of folks as they're looking. And at the same time, you're often speaking or you're doing martial arts techniques. You're doing things. You have music that's going on, but you're capturing an audience, and you have a mission in Rick Alonso Ministries. Tell us a little more about what that mission is.
Yes, our mission is to proclaim the gospel through the arts to help fulfill the Great Commission of God. When God called me, he says, I want you to use this to tell people about me. So basically, when I use art or anything, it's basically to get their attention. And afterwards,
It
I
does
can
it
share
too.
to them. I can share to them the gospel.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and every painting that I painted are an inspiration from the Lord. For example, the upside down painting, which I've been painting for since 1992, a
Wow.
long time. So, for example, that people don't know, but that has a lot of symbolic meaning. The night that I was called, God says, "I want you to do this, and this is what it's going to represent." The black canvas represent your sin. It's
Mm.
dark, and then it says when you add colors into that background, that represent the work or the fruit of the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
That I'm going to produce in your life.
Yeah.
So red might represent love, and yellow might represent joy, things like that. So and then when you turn it right side up, one of the reasons you're painting it upside down is because your life, apart from me, was upside down. But when I come into somebody's life, I'm going to turn their upside down life and make sense out of it. And so
Yep.
that's what that upside down painting is about. But as far as my mission and the whole entire thing, whether I go into the public schools, whether I be in front of any events, it's all because to tell people about God, because of what He's done for
Yeah,
us.
yeah. You know, and folks, I'm trying to paint a picture by words right now, because unless you've seen Rick Alonso's ministry and his painting, you cannot imagine how good it is. I mean, I've watched audiences for years as you've done your events, and their mouth is agape. I mean, it's like wide open, and they just can't understand how in the world you do what you do. But obviously the Lord has blessed you with a talent. You've taken that talent and used it for Him, and as a result it has expanded into schools. I know you've been in schools across the county and across the nation in a lot of
Yes.
different places, but here in Fresno County, you're well known for your ability to connect with kids, in particular, and to help them see a little bit of what they can be.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and martial arts is always one of those events that grabs a kid. They're always interested in that. The boys in particular, they're really interested in that. The girls love the painting and flipping it, and all of a sudden you're seeing something out of nothing. And I love your concept with red and yellow and the colors and the black background, and how all of us have a black heart in a lot of ways until the Lord comes in and opens us up.
That's right.
And it's fascinating to watch what's happened. When did you know, Faith, that this was something maybe I ought to try and I ought to follow? How did that all come about? I know you mentioned a little bit about the Lord working on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I don't really have an answer for that. I just felt the pull. I'd been interested in art like dad for forever because I mean, when you grow up with that, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to do that, and I had a natural ability with it as well. So because I love drawing, painting, I studied art for a little bit as well before I switched my major to psychology. So I was doing fine arts. So I was into um, like charcoal, pastel, paint, graphite, ink,
So
like
you got
all
a
that
good
stuff.
base to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah.
I got really serious with it, especially in high school and like my first year or so of college, because I thought like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out and be an artist and do like commission work and all that. And then I felt, obviously a different call, because I now use my degree in psychology for the recovery ministry that I'm running at our church.
Cool.
But yeah, like the whole pull with it was just kind of like a natural thing, and I loved being up there. And like Dad, I just have a passion of telling people about Jesus, and this is a really good way to tell people about Jesus, because it gives them a visual representative of what He's done for them, how much He loves them, and so that's kind of just really like how I eventually got into it. It was just God's working on my
I
heart.
love it. So was your first public performance the Martin Luther King?
I think so. Yeah, that was my first one, and that was with the full, like all my friends and peers and my teachers were all there.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
It was a lot of pressure, but thankfully, it ended up working really well, and a lot of people were like, "Whoa, I didn't know you could do that!" And I had people like wanting my autograph, and I was like only 10. I'm like, "Why do you want my autograph?
I love
I'm
it.
just 10."
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Rick, how do you come up with the subjects that you do? Obviously, you do Jesus, and that's one of the key ones that I've seen time and time again. And every time it feels fresh. How do you keep it that way? And how do you come up with the subjects that you're going to, or whatever you're going to paint?
Whatever I want to paint.
Yeah.
For example, schools, they're always looking for some kind of character message.
Right.
And so the way I come up with it is, of course, I pray. But the thing is, we have a discussion with the teacher. So if they want kindness, I start thinking like, how can I, present kindness in a way to where the kids can understand it.
Gotcha.
So I would paint someone who maybe was kind,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe had some maybe some kind of an animal that represent kindness, or just so I start getting into my what is that called, sketchbook, and start sketching,
Sure.
just trying to figure out. And if when I come up with something, I start to design it. How can I present this now in 3 minutes to the audience?
Yeah, folks, let me remind you what he just said. He does this in 3 minutes, and it looks like a professional, took a long time kind of thing to get it to look like that. And yet it's done in 3 minutes. That's obviously why it's called speed painting,
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe how amazing it is when you flip that and see it. It looks like it took you a long time going through it, but in some ways it did take you a long time, because you sketched it, you thought it through, you knew exactly where you were going. Then you found a way to craft it so that you could do it in a short period of time, so that the audience would stay with you that whole time.
Exactly. Oh, an example that we just did with Salvation Army not too long ago. Courage, for example. Well, what animal that represent courage? Tiger and lion.
Yeah.
So the tribe of the Lion of Judah, things like that. So that was their theme, and I'm like, okay, well, let's do a lion. Yeah. And so I did the lion, and after I did the lion, people want to buy the lion because I just did a lion.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things. The process. Sometimes the process can take weeks, months, a long time, and then the audience just see it in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and they're like, "How'd you do that?" And like, "Oh, it's not that easy."
A lot of practice.
You make it look easy, but I know there's a lot of work behind it.
There's a lot of work behind it because you have to keep practicing and practicing and practicing. People don't see the hours and hours of me trying to perform and things like that in my studio, but yeah, that's how I come up with it. So and a lot of times it's easy, and a lot of times it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your website is rickalonzoministries.com?
You go to rickalonzoministries.com or rickalonzo.org.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can catch it both ways.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, are you set up as a nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit organization.
So I'm assuming if people would like to send some money into you to help with your ministry, that would be a good place to start, is rickalonzoministries.com.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's the phone number that they could reach you at?
They can reach me at 559-238-5067.
Okay, 238-5067.
Yes.
559 Uh, I I know that the materials you use have to be expensive, and you
Really
go
expensive.
through them like crazy.
Mhm.
You know, just one time on stage, you've got your mat down there to protect the floor.
Mhm.
You've got all of your paints. You've got your canvas. You've got your easel. You got everything up there, and yet you're going through this like it's nothing. But it was a lot of work to get
Yeah.
it to that point.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
folks, we're going to hear a little more about some of the things that Rick and Faith are doing. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We love having you with us. Be sure you hit that share button and tell people about it, because we're on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, you name it, you can catch it on your time. Thanks for being with us. We'll look forward to one more segment. Stay around.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
No matter what comes, no matter what goes, if you're on a high, if you're in a low, if you're getting sick, if you feel well, if you're getting up, if you just fell, God's love and faithfulness will always be the same. Some things never change.
This is Powell to the People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're so glad that you're with us, and I have such special guests today, Rick Alonso and Faith Escobedo, his daughter and co-conspirator in this ministry effort that you guys are putting together. Rick, tell me about some of the places you've been, because I know you've done this art all over the place. Tell me some of the locations where you've done. Obviously here in California, but
Sure.
elsewhere.
Well, we've been in Guatemala, we've been in the Philippines, we've been in Europe, Prague. We've been Cambodia,
Canada.
Canada, and now we're getting called in Africa and in India.
India.
We've been asked to go all over
Yeah.
the world with this. But in July we're supposed to go to the Philippines and do what is it? Crusades every
Mhm.
night for
Wow.
12 days or something
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
And but
That's a lot.
yeah. And
You're not getting any younger. No,
No,
I'm
no.
older than you are.
No,
but-
you're right. You're right. I'm not getting any younger, but I told the Lord, if I'm gonna live, I want to live doing stuff for Him. So
yeah,
the art
fantastic.
is a tool,
It
to
is.
get me, just like music. So I just want to tell the audience that are listening to this, they also have a tool.
Mm.
They also have something that God has given them, and just use it for
Yeah.
His glory.
You know what amazes me about it is that art is universal.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no language that you have to know except art. What you see, it connects with your soul, it connects with your heart, connects with your mind. You don't have to really understand the words that are going with it, but you found a way to connect with people through the talent that God has blessed you with, and it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I appreciate so much. Did you go with Break the Barriers when they went to Romania or some of those other trips? Or
I was gonna go with them, but I had events here, so
Yeah,
it
you're
was, it was
scheduled.
very different.
Yeah.
But right now, what we're just seeking the Lord for is basically, uh, clarity to where we need to go, because I know the gospel. I mean, it needs to be out and about.
Yep.
The harvest is plentiful,
Yep.
but the laborers are few, and so we're trying to just follow Him. And
So when you go to, say, Africa, or you
Yeah.
pick a place to go,
Yeah.
do you partner with someone who speaks the language then and can,
interpret for us.
interpret for you? and
Yes,
things?
yes, we do. We
Mhm.
always have interpreters wherever we go.
So the art is universal,
Yeah.
then the language is interpreted by someone,
Yes.
and God uses that in a powerful way.
It's
You know.
amazing how God uses it.
Yeah.
So, Larry, you asked earlier where we've been. I mean, we've been to prisons. Prisons
Mm.
are are one of those things where the Lord says, they
Yeah.
need it. You
Mhm.
need to go.
Well, you go back to that black canvas
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
hearts that are black in prison. and need God, need light, need that color,
Yeah, exactly.
to be thrown on that canvas, because in a way you're painting on them,
Yeah. Oh man.
when you're in
Well
prison.
said. Well said.
Yeah.
So we just go wherever there's opening. Uh, gosh,
Yeah.
camps,
Yeah.
Yeah.
churches, outreach,
Mhm.
parks, wherever.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just
if a school wants to get a hold
Schools
of you,
too.
they go through your website
they go to my
and
website.
just connect with you there, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Just give us a call.
and your schedules then get worked out.
Yep.
So let me ask you, Faith, are you doing some of this on your own without Dad, or are you doing it together, or
Yeah, so we're eventually working towards that to where I can go out and do this on my own. So
Sure.
I've been training a lot to be able to do that. So most of the events that I've done so far, I've been speaking, but just like minimal portions, or I've been doing, or I've done like the whole sermon too. So
Sure.
it just kind of depends on what we're doing, and then I'll paint on my own, but I usually paint like 1 or 2 paintings, and
Okay.
then Dad will do 2, 3 paintings. It just kind of depends. We kind of half the work,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Of course.
But eventually, yeah, like we're making it a way to where I can, if somebody wants me there, or if somebody wants Dad there, but maybe he's not able to do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you're raising your replacement. Is what you're doing.
That is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm just 2.0.
I love it. I love it. Well, do you remember the first speed painting that you did?
Yes, I did.
Tell
I
me
did.
tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, it was Christmas, and Debbie and Steve of Break the Bears had asked me if I would like to do a presentation for a Christmas show that they're doing in Bullard High School.
Wow.
And so it's like, so what am I supposed to do? Well, I'm supposed to do an angel. Now, I've never painted an angel. At first, I was going to do the face of Christ, but I've never seen the face of Christ, and I just feel intimidated to do the face of Christ. But they said, well, maybe so that it's your first time and you don't want to like offend people too much. Let's do an angel because everyone can relate to an angel.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, well, um, the night that thing happened, I was just so nervous being in front of people. I'm the shyest guy you'll ever meet.
And yet when we see you on stage, and obviously God is blessed, it looks like you've been up there forever. It's nothing to it, I mean,
it's a camouflage.
yeah. But God has blessed you with a talent that just moves through the audience as they're watching. I mean, they're so comfortable watching you. It's amazing. So go on with your Bullard story.
So when I started, it was through a song called "Come Let Us Worship the King" by Sandy Patty,
Oh yeah.
and that went on, and I painted it, and they lifted that thing up and right in front of me, lifted it up, and the people are just going crazy, like
Yeah.
what? And I see Steve crying. I'm going, what's going on? And so it's just, man, there's something about it that some there's a presence there that I cannot explain.
Right.
And so that was the very first time, and afterwards I started doing a lot more in the community, like doing some uh, evangelistic outreach, because that was my whole purpose for it. But yeah, I think that was the very first time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, unless you've seen Rick Alonso, you can't possibly know how impactful it is. Do you have anything on YouTube?
I do have plenty of videos.
So if they put in
Rick Alonso,
Rick Alonso,
yeah.
they can find an example of it.
Yes.
So if they've got a service club, or they've got other big organizations, statewide organizations, and would like to be inspired, they can get a hold of rickalonzoministries.com or rickalonzo.org and can connect with you and get you signed up with them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, anyone who wish to see some of these paintings, they're there. Just Google my name, and then if they need to get a hold of us, just email us or.
And you have a gallery section on your website as well.
I believe so. I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
So, right now, what we're trying to do is we're just basically uh, getting ready, to go on a trip to the Philippines and trying to, uh, you know, to, to bring my daughter, to bring my family to go to a place where you didn't want to go back, and now
Yeah.
you're bringing them back.
Yeah.
It can get a little overwhelming
Oh, of course.
because it's your first time that you're taking your family to where you came from,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, and so that's the thing that we've been kind of,
So
you
when
know,
is this trip?
this is gonna be happening in July
July.
7th through the
Okay. So
22nd.
this summer
Mhm.
it's coming up.
Summer, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my mindset right now. That's what I'm thinking. But as far as if anyone who would like to book me for an outreach, an evangel or church service or whatever they can just give us a call.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you've got some time between now and then.
Yeah.
What's it cost to go to the Philippines now? What's
Oh my
your
goodness.
air
I think-
flights and
I think they were saying because we're
2,500 per
Yeah.
person or something.
yeah, it
like
was
that, right?
$2,500 per person just because the airfare is like keeps shifting.
oh yeah, and it
and
goes up and up and
yeah,
up.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it went a little more expensive just because of the air flight. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
2,500 per person.
And how many are going with you on this ministry trip?
So we're partnering with some people that we know at a church in Selma. It's a Valley Life Community Church, and they have people that they know in the Philippines because they've been going to the Philippines for, gosh, like I think one of the pastors. This is going to be his 44th trip
Wow.
to the Philippines.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so we're partnering with them to be able to go, and so they have their own team that they're making, and then our entire family is going to go. So my parents, and then my brothers, and then my husband.
Wow.
So that's 7 people plus whoever else they plan on bringing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, folks, if you're listening right now, you could go to rickalonzoministries.com and you can make connections with them. $2,500 is a lot of money, but when you're helping send someone to ministry, it's interesting how God does this. He parses it out, and you get a little bit of credit for sending somebody along. So you go and do the ministry. We help send you and make that happen. And folks, I'd like to encourage you to do that because this is an amazing thing. And Faith, I'm so glad to get a chance to talk to you. I'm glad you came in today. Rick,
Thank you so much.
you're a good friend, a longtime friend. I love how God is using you and what he's doing in your life. I just encourage you folks, check out Rick Alonzo Ministries. Find a way to support them. Send them some money. Send them along because they represent us very well. And they represent the King, Jesus Christ, very well as well. We're so glad you've been listening to us. Powell to the people, where civility is always in style. Be sure and hit that share button if you're listening on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, one or the other. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for being here.